This is Mark R. Hassan, and welcome to another edition of ArtScopeTO, the regular occasional arts podcast that differs from my regular film and film music related podcasts for my review site, KQEK.com. This month's show features Midhurst, Ontario-based painter Mary Lynne Atkinson, whose soothing and sometimes fierce works are on display until Saturday, November 25th at the Urban Gallery at 400 Queen Street East. A graduate of Wilfrid Laurier University and the Halliburton School of the Arts, Atkinson's work has been exhibited in Europe and in North America, and in 2014 she was awarded a bronze medal by the Société des Arts, Lettres, Sciences in Paris, France. Branded Land on Fire, the exhibition features a selection of works on multimedia canvases inspired by a recent trip to Morocco, where Atkinson traveled by camel and foot to observe, record, and take back images and emotions from the desert landscape and the unique interplay between light, shadow, darkness, and the terrain's unique textures. If you visit the editor's blog at KQEK.com, I've posted some stills from the exhibition which feature an array of her paintings. Our brief discussion begins with Atkinson's motivation to visit the exotic Moroccan desert.
It was a visit there 2 years ago now, and we spent some time out in the Sahara driving through the Atlas Mountains, and there was a sense of timelessness in this space, that people still live the same way they did thousands of years ago. There's still migratory people. The Berbers still buy herds of goats and Mali and pasture them through absolutely barren, inhospitable land and manage to survive, mom and dad and a couple of kids and a couple of camels and a herd in a place that looks like it's not fit for any habitation. So there was a sense of this vast, vast space and timelessness that attracted me to the place. That it's very harsh, unforgiving landscape, but there are people that are perfectly adapted to living there. So I found it amazing and inspiring and humbling, because it doesn't look and seem very comfortable to me, but for other people, they're very happy there.
The desert has radical shifts in temperature and light as the days flow into evening, night, and dawn, and I was curious about which aspects of these daily transitions most inspired the artist.
Because there's these vast unlit spaces, the stars come right down to the earth. It's an amazing amount of light that's there that we normally never see because of light pollution and just plain old pollution. So there's that dark velvety night where you can see stars forever and a sense of the universe unfolding. And then there's places like, for example, over here, where there's like little habitations in, this vast undulating space. And then the same thing, the verticality of the cliffs in the mountains. Then tucked in those valleys were streams and people. Because the distances are so great, there is that mirage effect of you think you're seeing water, but you're not.
With such impressionable surroundings, I asked Atkinson whether she preserved any ideas in rough form, such as sketches or photographs, to record her process of observing, reflecting, and later creating specific works.
I climbed the dunes at dusk, specifically to watch the sunset and the colors change on the land and the landscape. And I did exactly as you said. I did some sketching, and I certainly took reference photos. And I took them very sequentially to capture that change of color and light in the landscape. And then same thing, I got up early and climbed the dunes again at dawn. Climbing the dunes sounds like it's an easy thing, but it was like, it absolutely winded me, because it's like climbing in deep snow because it's soft. Some of the paintings are definitely in that very early morning pink sunrise coloration, and then others are more midday, in the hot colors of the desert.
Many of the paintings in Land of Fire feature combinations of warm amber, deep blues, dusty orange, and creamy grays, sometimes in clean flowing movements, which animate the supposed silence that dominates isolated locations.
There is the sense of timelessness, but also peace. It's a very quiet place. Yes, the silence is there, but because of sometimes on the side of a hill, I'd see a herd of goats, and I knew that there was a herder there because they don't leave their animals untended. It's their wealth, but because their clothing is woven out of goat's hair and camel's hair, they blend into the countryside. Like you have to look really hard and wait for someone to move before you can spot them. So there's that, they're out there, they're spending their day with their animals, and they're living a timeless, endless, repeating generation after generation life, and it gives it's that sense of like we're all sort of grains of sand in the desert of time. It's we're just a little speck here.
My last question addresses the artist's ability to see past repeating patterns and the sense of familiarity, and find those moments and nuances which evoke images that were eventually translated to canvases.
I think a lot of people look at it and they just say, it's all the same thing. But when I look, I see differently. That's part of the role of the artist. I see in rhythms and patterns and scale and proportion, because when I look, I'm not necessarily looking at the whole thing. I'm taking a close-up or a cropped vision of a portion of the landscape. Sometimes it's the opposite. It's the standing way, way back. So it's all that changing time and distance sense that inspires the work, basically. These are acrylics. The majority of them are on birch panel. There are some on canvas, and then the two sort of maybe more experimental pieces are oil and resin on 16-gauge steel. They took forever to dry, and I scribed into them with a Dremel, but it took a long, long time before the paint dried enough for me to be able to get into them. But then what I was looking for was like the whiteness of the steel underneath, which is why I covered them in resin to preserve that color so they didn't rust out. There's a variety of technique, because there's also multimedia techniques where I used, for example, photo transfer on birch panel, and then part of the grain of the wood became integrated into the painting. So I did that deliberately. It was a little brain teaser for me, because I knew when I was choosing the grain, I had to be choosing it in reverse of what I was looking at, because when the transfer goes down and the ink is left behind, it's in reverse of what you're looking at when you're starting out. So, and those were, some of the painterly challenges, I would say, in the processes.
Special thanks to Mary Lynne Atkinson for her time during a busy exhibition at the Urban Gallery, and gallery manager Calvin Hambrook and curator Alan Sugar. Mary Lynne Atkinson's beautiful paintings are showcased at atkinsonworks.com. Thanks to Glenda Fordham at Fordham PR for facilitating the interview, and visit fordhampr.ca for more stills and video of Atkinson's work, with the latter featuring the artist providing some running commentary on her paintings. Prior editions of ArtScopeTO and KQEK.com's podcasts are available on the same iTunes, Google Play, Libsyn, and YouTube channels. Coming soon, an interview with Peter Rothman on the publication of Dear Gwelda, The Death and Life of Pioneering Canadian Filmmaker Julian Rothman, the innovative producer-director best known for crafting Canada's first feature-length horror and 3D film, The Mask. Lastly, the editing and mixing services used to create this podcast are also available for hire. For further info, please visit mondomark.com or email audioservices@mondomark.com. This podcast is copyrighted 2017 by Mark R. Hassan. All rights reserved.